Good afternoon, folks, and welcome to the Pervasive Media Studio Lunchtime Talk. So these talks are live every Friday at 1 p.m. Today, live at about 10 past 1. Apologies for that. Both here in the building and live online. So whether you're in Bristol or you're far away, you can join in the conversation. My name is Martin O'Leary. I'm a white man in my late 30s wearing a sort of forest green t-shirt and some brown trousers. I'm the studio community lead here at Pervasive Media Studio. So every Friday, we throw open the doors of the Pervasive Media Studio for Open Studio Friday, which is your chance to spend some time in the space, hot desk alongside our residents and staff from 10 a.m. to 5 p.m. So especially a big welcome to those of you who are new to the studio. Anyone new to the studio want to stand up? Welcome. This bit is for you. What is the Pervasive Media Studio? We're a diverse and collaborative community exploring creativity and technology, everything from comedy to coding and product development to performance art. And we're a partnership between Watershed, where we are right now, the University of the West of England, the University of Bristol, and we're funded by Arts Council England. And what we do is we offer studio space, desks, meeting rooms, events and opportunities, all for free to our residents as part of a spirit of generosity and mutual exchange. And we're a place for people to take risks with embryonic ideas and to make some time for collaboration. So quick bit of housekeeping. Feel free to move around, make a cup of tea, grab a glass of water from the kitchen. We've got some bean bags here at the front. There's a sofa, have a chill. We have a quiet space just through to my left, your right, just the door around the corner there. If you need to take a break at any point, just pop in there. No need to make a fuss about it. If you hear a fire alarm, we're not planning a fire drill. That is real. So the studio team will direct you to the fire exits, which are at the other end of the studio on either side. And there are accessible toilets and baby change located in the little corridor just next to the kitchen. So there will be a Q&A at the end of this talk. Those of you who are watching online can pop your questions into the YouTube chat. Faraha will be your voice in the room today. If you're in the building, you just stick your hand up. We'll send a microphone around. You can get news on all of our future talks by heading to, this is the long bit, watershed.co.uk/studio, at PM Studio UK on Twitter, at Pervasive Media Studio at mastodon.social on Mastodon, or at Pervasive Media Studio on Instagram. So just to let everyone know, there is no talk or Open Studio Friday next week, as we're all very busy with Playable City, where we've got 6 exciting new prototypes on show around the city for you to come and play with. Full details and schedule for that are on the website, playablecity.com. We'll be back in 2 weeks' time with another great talk from our own Sharon Clark. But today, our speaker is Raquel Meseguer. Raquel is a Bristol-based disabled artist who works with rest and horizontality as creative impulses and as a more equitable way to gather in public. And today she'll be talking about Restful City, which is a year-long project that asks Bristol venues to extend a warm welcome to the chronically ill community by running what she calls horizontal events. And she's going to reflect on what radical access looks like in practice. So please join me in giving a very warm welcome to Raquel.
Thank you. Thank you all for being here. I'm going to tell you a little bit about me, and then I'll talk about Restful City. So I am a woman in my late 40s. I'm half Spanish, half Filipino. I have long curly hair. I'm wearing blue jogging bottoms and a kind of smock, striped smock today. And I'm standing in front of a screen with an image of, a title that says Towards a Restful City, and an image of an event that was called Rest Improvised at Arnolfini. And you can see lots of people lying down on beanbags and yoga mats, resting with the Frank Bolin exhibition. And the image kind of pops with the colours of summertime and a bright t-shirt, bright lime green beanbag, and the beautiful paintings of Frank Bolin. So this is a restful event. Please make yourselves as comfortable as possible. We've got some beanbags and yoga mats down here. I'm going to audio describe any images, so you don't need to see the screen if it's better for you to rest and just listen. And please feel free to come and go and take a break whenever you need to. So I began resting in public in 2016 as a way to have art and theatre in my life again, because at that time I'd lived with chronic pain for about 11 years, and for a while my world got really, really small. I first became a resident here at Pervasive Media Studio to develop a project called A Crash Course in Cloudspotting. And I did that after I triggered a security alert at the South Bank Centre by lying down on the 6th floor. And that piece is kind of, are you cloud spotting right now? Is that?
It's just familiarity with the pictures and the
Okay, okay. Joining the dots, nice. So that piece was kind of a response to that quite ridiculous response at the South Bank Centre. And we found strategies and ways to tell disabled people's stories and about their attempts to rest in public. We found we really needed to create a beautiful, safe, durational space that we could slow down our audiences in and then tell them these stories about lives, about people who navigate the world very differently. As a team, we also wanted to make the invisible acts of rest visible within the piece. So we worked with Tom Metcalfe and Joseph Horton and the team here at Pervasive Media Studio to create an app that allows our resters, we have like a remote choir of resters who use the app to communicate their rest in real time with the audience. So when they press start resting on the app, it triggers a light in the installation and an individual sound loop in the installation. So when our audience first come into the space, what they walk into is a live representation of those real acts of rest that sustain people who have chronic illness. So I'm going to show you an image of what that space looks like that we created for A Crash Course in Cloudspotting. So the image shows like 9 mats and 7 mats and 2 raised beds, which are the structures that we invited people to lie down on. There's a circular threshold that's created by long panels of fabric that are hanging from the ceiling. And you can see the dots of lots of little single LED lights that are hanging from the ceiling in a kind of constellation. So we created this kind of amphitheatre so that we could tell those stories, and also so that we could invite our audiences to engage in a collective act of rest. So we invite 10 people to lie down together for the duration of the installation, which is 35 minutes, or for the installation and performance, which is 55 minutes. Anyway, that might be too much detail. But I guess the important thing we discovered doing this piece is that when we rest, we kind of drop into a different mode of being. And in that mode of being, we hear stories differently, I think. I think stories and words land in the body differently. So since then, I've kind of been advocating and championing the horizontal as a site for spectatorship and as a site for engaging with art of all kinds, visual art, theatre, cinema, you name it. What am I going to talk about next? Oh, yeah. I mean, when I was thinking about this talk, I wanted to go as far as saying that rest is a type of technology, but I don't know what you think about that. We can talk about that later. So I'm going to play the trailer for A Crash Course in Cloudspotting, which I think gives you a bit more of a sense of the atmosphere that we created. But I'll audio describe it first, and then I'll play it. So in the video, it starts with a single LED that comes into focus, and that is shot from below, so you can see the light hanging. And then we cut to a mass of copper cables, which are all the cables, all the individual lights coming together in the center of the installation. And then we cut to a stream of falling sand and someone's hand playing and turning slowly within the falling grains. And we see the specks of light kind of swimming in and out of view behind that fabric, and then a body as a landscape with the lights above and behind it. Hi. I'm Raquel. I'll be your guide for the next 30 minutes. All you need to do is rest and listen. For me, it was the difference between one moment and another, between before and after, like a line drawn in sand. So I'd like to introduce Restful City by starting with this quote by Joanna Hedver from their essay Sick Woman Theory. I used to think that the most anti-capitalist I used to think that the most anti-capitalist gesture left had to do with love, but now I see I was wrong. The most anti-capitalist protest is to care for another and to care for yourself, to take seriously each other's vulnerability and precarity and fragility, and to support it, honour it, empower it. A radical kinship, an interdependent politics, a politics of care. So I suppose my own contribution to the politics of care has been to advocate for rest as a way to experience art and make art and gather together in public. So what began for me as a kind of personal way to have art in my life again has become a collection of methodologies for gathering people in public in a way that centres rest and care. So I've hosted horizontal conversations, I've led guided rests, and in 2022-23 I ran this year-long project called Towards a Restful City, which, as Martin said, asked venues to extend a warm welcome to the chronically ill community by running events with me. So we asked venues to create rest-in spaces, to declare themselves rest-friendly, and to invest in equipment like the beanbags and yoga mats and things so that people could actually rest, and to work with me to create these horizontal events. It was also an experiment, I guess, in how far we could maybe shift the culture of the city within a year. So things that have happened during that year are that Bristol Old Vic have created a permanent rest-in space on the balcony level of their foyer. This image shows that rest-in space. It's got a super comfy green rug and a couple of bean bags and cushions. It's got a sweet little coffee table. I was reading Rest is Resistance when I took this photo, so I've propped that up. And this was taken on a December day with a kind of, weak light, I guess, coming in from the windows. This is only the second permanent rest-in space in a UK theatre that I know of. The first is at BAC and was created, it was commissioned by Jess Tom during their year there as a change maker, Jess Tom of Tourette's Hero. Other things that have happened this year are that Arnold Feeney ran a horizontal event with us for their exhibition, Forest Wake This Ground. So we met in the galleries at twilight on a September evening. It was a closed event, so we had the whole gallery to ourselves. It was a kind of like night at the museum kind of vibe. And Phil Owen, who's the special programs manager there, he later said that he thought this was Arnold Feeney at its best. So this is, let me jump back one to the rest-in space at Bristol Old Vic. It also has this invitation that's printed in the rest-in space that says, many people need to rest in public if they're to be part of their community. You're welcome to lie down, drop public etiquette, and do what you need to do to feel well and comfortable. And this is a photo from that horizontal event at Arnold Feeney. In the foreground of the photo are these huge, really colourful textile gourds. And at the back of the image, against the wall, is a really intricate and detailed cardboard forest that was part of the exhibition. And between those two is somebody lying down on a yoga mat and with some yellow cushions. They're turned towards the piece of art and they're just resting with that forest sculpture. So the Arnold Feeney declared itself rest-friendly. This image shows some yoga mats on the wall they're there all the time. They're available for you to use during any exhibition. They also have beanbags that are part of quite a few of their exhibitions. As you can see in this image, there's like green and yellow and blue beanbags, and then in the background are some photos from Gary Fabian's exhibition Adore, which are also blue and yellow and red, so they kind of go together. We also ran 2 dedicated horizontal cinema events here at Watershed, where we were given the whole cinema to invite a group to come and lie down together to watch a film. But you can do that for any film at Watershed, which I really want to kind of, shout about, that for any film, for any screening of any film, you can call Watershed and say, I'd like to do horizontal cinema, or you can talk to people at the box office and ask for a yoga mat or a beanbag, and they'll set it up for you. And when you come in, you kind of feel like a VIP because it's all there, and there's got a little held sign and everything. And you can get a free companion ticket if that makes it more possible for you to come with somebody. And this is a photo of our horizontal cinema event. It's really wonky, this image, but there are about 15 people lying down, all kind of spoony comfy, in front of After Sun, this film was. So we also worked with studio resident Jazz Thompson to create this Restful City map. It's in kind of blues and greens and greys, and there are 3 icons with the 3 main venues that we've been working with. The icons are like a really comfy beanbag and somebody lying on their side on a beanbag. So there's Bristol, Watershed and Arnolfini, and the specific offers are kind of listed in white writing on the left-hand side. We did have an idea of wanting to create like an interactive map where people could kind of could contribute their personal knowledge of, like, because so many people have told me that they like a particular cafe where they're able to rest, or a particular pew in a church, or a particular sofa in a I don't know, an art centre or something. But in the end, we felt like we couldn't really encourage people to go and rest in places that hadn't really declared themselves rest-friendly, that maybe we'd be putting the venue and those people in maybe an unsafe situation. So we've gone with these 3, and I'm hoping this will grow. My ideal would be that you can pick this little map up at any station in the UK and know when you arrive somewhere where you might be welcome to rest in any city. So I feel like during the year we've learned and confirmed a few things. Like, we know that running dedicated horizontal events makes it much more possible for people with hidden disabilities or chronic illness to engage with art, to come together and experience art together, for a few reasons. One reason is that when we're all lying down, those of us who have to lie down don't expend extra energy on the kind of stares and the microaggressions that behaving in public often meets with. And more easily, because when we've been invited to lie down, we feel welcome. And I feel like that's what art institutions should all be about welcomes and belongings. We also learned that guided rests are a really good way to give people a different experience of art and art exhibitions. So a guided rest into an opportunity to rest with an exhibition, people had very different experiences. So this is a guided rest at Arnolfini during the Batik exhibition. And a few things that people said afterwards were, it was a great way to experience art, slow and in depth, a really different way to spend time in a gallery, a nice, slow way of connecting with art. We also tested the possibility of hybrid events. So for a couple of concerts, most of the audience were sitting, and we created like 5 resting spots down at the front, which were kind of semi-successful. In part, they were successful because those of us who got to lie down really need these instruments. We had an amazing time. It was probably the best way to experience the music. But other members of the public didn't quite know how to navigate the space around us, and people stepped on our yoga mats, and one person tried to steady themselves on one of our heads while they were getting to their seats. So that just told us that we need to do a lot, maybe we need to do a lot more to to normalise it. So what we've started doing now is that for a hybrid event, one of us will make a short announcement at the beginning explaining why we've got these resting spots, and then people don't spend the whole time thinking what is going on here. And then we've been joined by other people who might not need to lie down, but who might choose to for that event. Am I going too fast? No, okay, great. So the reason I think it works really well at Arnolfini and why we've done so many events at Arnolfini is that they've embraced rest as a way of engaging with art, which also aligns with their ambition to be a centre for well-being. But they've also invested in a lot of training with their front of house staff. So everybody at Arnolfini knows how to talk about rest, and they know why they're doing it. When I've rested there and a member of the public has been concerned about me, I've overheard those conversations, and they've handled them very brilliantly and in a cheeky kind of funny way. And they now make those conversations about other ways to their specific offers to the chronically ill community and also to the visually impaired community. They start those conversations with artists that they're thinking of exhibiting right at the beginning, so it doesn't come later on. So the artists, because I think particularly in visual art, it's often seen as maybe an obstacle to how you see the art, like the art has to happen in a really sterile, clear space. But if you've had conversations with the artists from the very beginning, then that seems to be much more, people seem to be much more open to it. And to even take it upon themselves to develop specific dedicated events. So in the autumn, we're doing an event with the Fedra Ensemble, who I think are online today, who are doing some concerts of Gavin Breyer's work, which is kind of long durational pieces of music. And they did some separate fundraising so that we could do a dedicated rest event. And I mean, it would just be ideal if venues and companies would start to think about those offers like much earlier on. And the reason I think it works really well here at Watershed is that we're all familiar with getting super comfy and cozy to watch a movie. Like, we all do that at home. So I think it works really well. Horizontal cinema works really well here. And once the lights go down, I don't feel watched. I do feel a little bit watched at the beginning when I lie down. But once the lights go down, I feel like I dissolve into that brilliant cinema space just like everybody else does. In terms of wider cultural shifts, like, I knew we were unlikely to change the culture of a city in a year, but I hope we've made some ripples towards normalising rest and made a good case for rest and horizontality as ways to gather, but also as artistic methodologies. So I've been really heartened that there's been more rest events in Bristol. There was a sweet rest event in February that Rosanna Diaz, who's a resident here, ran. And in March, there was a Spoonie rave at the Cube Cinema. This is an image for Spoonie Rave. It is purple, and it's got all kinds of vibrant, it's got an orchid and a sunflower and a daisy, and it says a multi-sensory feast for tired and sensitive flowers. And this was a beautiful event. It had a reduced capacity of 60 people, and it sold out within a week. What was really lovely is that people could come with their friends, so people came with mates who might not want to lie down themselves, but there was a stage area where us spoonies could lie down, and then there was an auditorium where people could experience the music differently. The other thing that I felt like I learnt from this event is that they asked everyone to take a lateral flow test, and I thought that was a really good practice for spoonie events, but also I know quite a few people who are still shielding, and actually for our community events, it's not that big a deal to ask for it. So going forward, we'll always ask people to do a lateral flow test and provide them for Restful City events. I think to really shift, sorry, I'm going to go back here. To really shift the culture of the city, I feel like we need to run Restful City for another 3 to 5 years, and maybe do a piece of work around allyship. Work with venues, but also just work with our able-bodied mates and talk about what allyship is. If anybody knows who's doing really good work around that, please tell me, because I feel like my examples of good allyship are really personal and informal. So I'm not quite sure how to go about doing a bigger piece of work around allyship, apart from like writing blogs and stuff. But yeah, if anyone has ideas, please tell me. So I'd like to end on this quote by Tricia Hersey, who's the founder of the NAP Ministry, who writes about rest as resistance and rest as reparations. They write about this specifically within the context of the trauma of black bodies, the trauma that black bodies suffer encountering systemic racism. But I've been really inspired by her work and her language that she uses to talk about rest. And I am thinking a lot at the moment about how it might be different for black bodies to rest in public, what might be the different barriers. And we're doing a workshop in July that prioritises and centres the stories of black disabled people and their attempts to rest in public. So if you would like to come to that and tell us your story, we'd love to hear. So I'll end with this quote. I believe that this work will not happen in the fake, luxurious ways that we believe rest must happen. It will not happen away from our communities, held up in expensive hotels, in retreat centres. If the message of rest is to be truly for all and a full and decolonising moment, it must be life-altering and within our communities, homes, workspaces, religious institutions, academic spaces, and most importantly, in our minds. I don't believe we will get to freedom from grind culture by doing more of the same and aligning ourselves with any corporate wellness message that does not get to the root of the issue. I think what's really important about this quote is that the rest needs to happen within our communities and not hidden and not behind closed doors. And also, I really like the language of grind culture, which I think we can all relate to. So I'm going to leave it there. And if anybody has questions or want to talk about radical access, I'm well up for that.
All right, thank you very much, Raquel. So questions, if anyone has any questions, stick your hand in the air, or if you're online, pop them into the YouTube chat. Anyone want to kick us off? Okay, got a microphone here. You're not going to be able to hear yourself, but it's for the people online.
Hi, Raquel. I just want to ask you, how do you have you worked out, I bet you have, in detail, the parameters of how long people are allowed to rest for? I mean, can people go for a night? Or not because the venues are closing, but can they stay the whole day? Can they move their objects in? You know, do you have parameters around such things?
Yeah, yes. What do you mean about move their objects in?
Well, I mean, if I brought my rucksack in
you know,
I mean, just unpacked it and started cooking on a camper stove and things like that.
Yeah, I don't think that Arnolfini would like that very much. But I think I think the invitation is to rest for as long as you need to. Whether we're actually able to do that because of our own sense of our own shame or our own barriers around rest. But the invitation is very open. They are really up for it. But I haven't made a document that says how long people should or can rest for. I don't know specific timings.
And also, just want to ask, so there you've made it clear in some of the events where people who might not have a disability are welcome to come and rest too.
Yeah.
And to go and get involved in your exhibitions or your performances, which is brilliant for a wider view. And how much would you encourage people who don't necessarily have a disability to go and use the rest spaces?
Yeah, I mean, I'd really encourage it. I really do think that spending more time with art gives you a different relationship to that piece of art. Maybe I haven't sort of expressed clearly enough how much I think, rest in, I've lost my trail of thought, but I would encourage people to rest with art. And all that we miss when we prioritise the vertical. So I have become fascinated with the horizontal view and the undersides of things and spending time with the unintended view and the uncared for view. which is maybe just a metaphor for seeing the underbelly of things, or making space in our lives for the underbelly of things, the darker sides of things, maybe.
So getting more political as you go on.
Yeah, hopefully. I mean, I think rest is inherently political. Rest and care, I think, is inherently political. And Joanna Hedver writes about that beautifully in Sick Woman Theory, that like who you love, how you rest, when you rest, how long you rest for, all those things are really political, and they our cultures attempt to police that. Not police with actual police, but I mean attempt to influence that heavily. Yeah, I really recommend the essay. It's brilliant. I can get the link up.
Thank you.
Joanna Hedver. It's the person who wrote this quote. Yeah, Hedver. I hope I'm pronouncing their name right. And there's a lot of wisdom as well in this space with rest and different ways of navigating the world. So if anybody else wants to chip in to answer, do feel free. Yeah.
I'm sort of struck not so much, or to some extent, by the horizontalness, but also by the act of stopping and slowing down. Have you explored a relationship with the slow cities movement?
No. Sounds like I should.
Because that's sort of, slow foods, changing the temporal relationship, which I was familiar with in terms of that sort of making things, the city more personable perhaps. And the other thing that struck me is in terms of you're looking at venues and slowness, and I'm thinking of one or two people, actually I think residents here, with disabilities, who've talked about mapping cities and about places to rest when moving through the city. So not necessarily a venue, but maybe a corner of a park or a quiet spot where you recover from having moved from one place to another, recover your composure and then move on.
Yeah. I mean, ideally, I'd love a rest in spaces network so that you were never more than like a 5-10 minute walk from somewhere where you were welcome to rest. What is the premise of the slow cities movement, other than, is it kind of...
Sorry, I've just looked
what I get worried about sometimes with some of the wellness movement stuff is that, like, you rest in order to be more productive, and this isn't that.
There is a touch of that in their
okay.
There is a touch of that in their manifesto, as in rejecting measures of efficiency based on the speed of motorised traffic. So slow cities provide enhanced access to goods, services and jobs. Yes, there is a touch of that.
There is a touch of that. I get worried about that. About only valuing rest if it makes you more productive. Like, I want to sever that relationship and kind of carve out space for rest Tricia Hersey talks about rest as a dream space, and like if we're going to dream of better collective futures, then we need to carve out that space, not to just get up and do more. Yeah.
Hey.
Raquel, first of all, I'd just like to thank you for the work that you're doing, because it's really important. I've got two questions. One is whether you've had any dialogue with the South Bank Centre since you alerted the security.
Yeah.
And the other question is around, you're making this work in a sector which is still very heavily driven by achievement and productivity, and people are afraid to slow down and they're afraid to rest. And I completely agree with you, the importance to detach rest from productivity, that you should be able to rest for the sake of rest. Yeah. But I wonder whether you've had any conversations, or if you're thinking about doing any work about rest in the workplace and making that more acceptable.
Yeah. So I'll answer the first question first. The South Bank Centre, I've been in dialogue with them, but basically, the sad thing is that when that happened, there was a rest space. It's just that none of the security team or the front of house team knew about it, because it was during the Unlimited Festival. So there was a space, but it just goes to show how the communication in a big building like that doesn't necessarily get to everybody. And often when you behave differently in a public space, who you're met with isn't like the arts team, it's the security team, or whoever, somebody who gets nervous about it and who alerts the security team. In terms of working in the rest space, resting in the workspace, I don't have a good answer, but I am doing a project next, which is about stretching a long-form residency and trying to embed things like paid rest days, a care coordinator across a whole project, which would be for the producers as well as the performers, because I think we are getting a lot better, hopefully, at access for performers, even though we do still have to fight for it. But there is little conversation about the access for producing teams and how to make that possible, I think, at this stage. So I'm going to be trying to embed that practice and in that project, and we'll see what happens. Yeah.
Hi, thank you. I'd love to hear your bubbling thoughts on rest as technology, Raquel. You did tease us with it.
Yeah, I did. I mean, I was partly trying to hook in some techies, but I mean, I do feel like I use rest now as a practice and can drop into quite a deep rest, which feels like it gives me access to different types of knowledge and helps me join dots in different ways. And so I do feel like it's a kind of technology or a type of knowledge. And I feel like in collective rest, I mean, we kind of know this from meditation and things like that, that collectively when we come together, something else happens too. So I don't, maybe I can talk about it as a technology, but those are my burgeoning thoughts on it.
We had a conversation in the studio community recently about the possibility of faith as a technology as well. Mm-hmm. And I think maybe there's some similar ways of thinking about how we navigate structures and respond to systems and things as technologies that may not be mechanized but are those kinds of systems.
And are ways of connecting things and enabling things. So yeah.
Thanks.
Yeah, pleasure.
Anyone else got a question for Raquel? Michael's got another one.
So a couple of thoughts have just occurred to me. One about a thought about working with artists to design for horizontality.
Yeah.
And the other one was suddenly remembered Rosanna Dias.
Yeah.
Oh, you're in contact. Yeah.
I am. Yeah. Yeah.
Right.
Because they're working a lot
Radical
with care.
Yes.
And the care coordinator is a practice that they discovered in some of their research.
Yes. I had conversations with Rosanna about stress and rest amongst production staff in things like television and radio, because it's quite a stressful environment. Yeah. And therefore looking to see if there were ways that we could think about that. Not with any results yet, I'm afraid. But
yeah. I mean, I'd be really, I mean, the work that Rosanna's doing is brilliant and feels like it's very much aligned and in tandem with this work. Thank you all so much for your time. Please do tell your mates about horizontal cinema. Like, it's been going for a while, and we would love people to feel like they could use it more. But also, that's why we're doing the dedicated events, so that people can get a bit more comfortable with it. And we'll be doing more Restful City events over the next couple of years. Yeah. Okay. Thanks.
All right, well, before everyone goes, another reminder, there is no talk next week. Please do not turn up. We will turn you away. Or Open Studio Friday next week. Because of Playable City, which is on all next week. 6 exciting new prototypes on show around the city for you to come and play with. Full details on the website, playablecity.com. Please do check it out. There's some amazing stuff in there. If you want to stick around in Hot Desk today or find out more about what we do, please come find one of the studio team. Studio team, give us a wave. Here we are. We'll be happy to help. If you're online, drop us a line on studio@watershed.co.uk with any questions. Thank you all for being here today, and we'll see you all again in 2 weeks' time.
Thank you.